Mr. Orange, we did ask Mr. Green this question earlier on, and I feel it's only fair that we're going to ask everybody else as well. He was very adamant that for himself he could never accept his child if they said that they were gay. If your son came home and said, I'm gay, what would you do? How would you react?
Well, my reaction, I would be a little surprised and upset, but then it's not something that I can't, come to terms with. I've been brought up in a Western, society, and I'm aware of the things happening around me. So I know, it's not something I'm new to, and I definitely wouldn't disown my son or, act out of in violence. I would definitely be there to support my child.
You say that, but what if the rest of the wider community was to then say that they were going to disown you because they feel that what you're supporting is completely wrong?
Okay, in that regard, that's my child. Mm-hmm. And my child comes before the community or anybody else.
Good answer, man.
Yeah.
I agree on that one.
Personally, my sexual orientation, I'm straight. But like I said, because I've been brought up in the UK, and I've worked with people who are homosexual or have a different sexual orientation.
So can I ask you this? At what age would you support your son when he comes out and tells you he's gay? What age would you accept it?
Now, that's a difficult question.
Yeah. Why?
Because
it's not a choice, is it? It's something that he's born with. So he should have known when he was 5, 8, 10. So it doesn't matter, does it?
I think it's more to do with when we as people start sexualizing things, and we have sexual tendencies.
Right.
5-year-olds don't have sexual tendencies. Mm-hmm. Right. I think when we start hitting puberty and our hormones all over the place, that's when we discover, like sexual tendencies and whatnot. Now.
But they get taught that beforehand. Before the age of puberty in school, they get taught that.
So let's bring in Mr. Red for a moment. Mr. Red, what would you like to say to this? Because Mr. Green, we're going to come to yourself because we want to talk about the international community as well and how they react. Mr. Red, what would you do if your child came home and was, 13? Because Mr. Green's just said they teach you in school. Absolutely. In this country, we have sex education, and I think a lot of people would agree that's the right thing to do. But if they were 13 years old and they said, I think I'm a lesbian, let's say, if it was a girl.
Okay.
What would you do?
My initial reaction obviously would be what every parent would be, yes, I would be upset. However, I believe that there should be age restrictions anyway, so 18 is the ideal age. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't go and make that child feel any different. I would give it so much love. But I would also say, don't try anything until you're about 18, because then,
So let me ask you this, do you think there's too much information out there?
Sorry?
Are we teaching our kids too much? Are we sexualizing them too early anyway? When we're talking about sex and we're talking about in biology, I think I was taught about reproduction, and that's the only reason I was taught sex education is because of reproduction. It wasn't about pleasure. It wasn't about going out there to please myself in any other way. Sex was only taught to us because that's what sex does. Do you think that that kind of education should be a lot earlier, and that's the only sex we should be talking about? No. Or when we talk about sexual orientation, should that be introduced into schools? And if so, why?
Okay, you've raised quite a few subjects there. However, I can talk about my experiences. Okay. When I went to school, sex education for me was at 9. It was, you're going
at 9.
Yeah, it was. You're going to sweat a lot. That's all we were told.
Okay.
And then when we went to secondary school, it was literally the very basics. You know what I mean? They didn't go into detail. There was none of this about pleasure, and that was it. So I think different schools have different
approaches.
Yeah. But with the work that I've done, or the work that I do, I meet people from all, aspects of life.
Yeah.
And it's surprising when I spoke to gay or lesbian people, they've actually said to me that they've actually known at 5. I mean, I remember one guy telling me that at the age of 5, he was sitting in a coach, and he remembered, a bloke coming in, and he had no top on, but because he was muscular. He remembered.
He was attracted to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was at the age of 5, and that was his. That was his.
But you recommend if it was a child, wait until you're 18 to really know who you are as a person. Mr. Blue, come in on this.
I think straight, gay, or lesbian. I think 18 is the right age to probably start.
So you're saying for anyone?
Yeah.
Can I just say that there's two things that
is happening. One is about, we're talking about the sexual act and sexual identity, but you could be at age 3, 5, 8, 13, whatever, and you don't necessarily have to go through the whole sort of, experimentation, because you can still be LGBT and asexual, and, there are a lot of people out there who don't have any sort of sexual tendencies, and they don't want to be experimenting, they just identify as LGBT. So it doesn't necessarily,
you don't have to go through the sexual act, is what you're saying.
There are, and there's a number of famous people out there, and, other people out there who identify as asexual. They know that they're gay. I mean, for example, back in the day, there's people like Kenneth Williams, Frankie Out, all these sort of stars.
Martin Fry, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there's, so, can we kind of like separate the fact of the sexual act as opposed to
being LGBT.
So it goes back, just going back to Mr. Green, he's saying, I don't understand gay people. What's there to understand?
So can I
because it's about people.
So we're talking about people, and also
when I ask what makes you want to be gay, they can't explain why. They can't explain. They just say, well, do you know what? I just like having that act with a male.
Well, hold on. I'm going to interject for a second here. If I asked you what makes you straight, how can you answer that question? What makes you straight? Is it your faith? Is it the way that you were born? What makes you straight?
It's not just my faith.
I'm asking you a very simple question. What makes you straight? What makes you a heterosexual?
Seeing men don't turn me on.
Okay, so then if a gay person was then to respond to you and say, actually, that's the same thing for me. When I see another man as a man, that is my preference. But in the same way that you can't explain why you are heterosexual, the same respect a lesbian or a gay person cannot say, this is why I'm gay or straight. So should it not be exactly the same, or can you not get that?
No, but what I don't see is, two men going at it.
Yeah.
What is
but you've just had Mr. Blue clarify. I'm just going to expand on what you're saying, and then we'll pick up. He's just very clearly said you have the sexual act, just in the way that a man and woman have sex. He's talking about if a man and man have sex. That's the sexual act, okay? Yeah. On the other side of that, you can be asexual. That means you are not you're not committing the sexual act. You are, however, saying, I am part of the LGBT community. We've heard from a lot of individuals from the Catholic faith who have said, we do not in any way condone or say that you should go through having sex with a man or a woman. However, we respect the person. So the sexual act is different and the person themselves are different. What would you say to that?
I don't understand it. I still don't understand it.
And this,
I can't comprehend that, if that makes sense.
And can I also,
it's something that just
it doesn't click.
It don't click, exactly.
Right. So can I ask you, Mr. Blue? I mean, this has been said in the past as well, and this is a conversation, I think, when people are talking about sexual orientation, and we take away the choice element that I was born like this, and this is what it's not. I'm gay because I was born like this. So, and this conversation where I've seen on the internet, and I've seen people have this conversation when they talk about gay people and they talk about that element and saying that then shouldn't we have the same kind of freedom and that speech when we talk about pedophiles?
No, because let's not mix LGBT with pedophilia.
I'm not mixing them. Let's just be clear. When we are talking
in pedophilia, that is about about consenting adults, and this is pedophilia is not about consenting adults. It's somebody who has some kind of
violation,
a violation of a child. They're talking about a child. It could be a baby, it could be 1 month, 1 week, or something. And it's completely different because you're exposing and exploiting that minor. And in the UK laws, that is not acceptable.
Let's take this discussion point a little bit forward, because I think that's a very correct point, and it's one that we completely, say is right. But what would you say, Mr. Green, to the fact that internationally, earlier on in the show, you said very clearly, if your child said that they were gay, you would slap them, and you never told us what would happen after that point. In certain parts of the world, being gay, you can be killed, you could be stoned to death by certain laws, and it does happen. But certain religions also do. Yeah. What I'm trying to get at, and the point I'd like to ask you, and perhaps to extend it to everyone
I'd
on the
never
table.
disown my child.
Okay.
Well done.
But at the end of the day, until he or she cannot give me a justified answer and explain to me why they feel they need to be a gay or a lesbian, they can live their life as normal, but until they cannot answer me that question...
What is normal?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's normal?
No, as in what? No.
What is normal?
What do you mean? What is normal?
Like, what would be normal?
If they can't explain to me why they feel the way they feel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because me personally,
again, it's going back when you were asked the question, can you explain why you're straight? You couldn't give an answer. So
how could you expect your child to?
And especially if he's going to.
But this is the thing. No gay can explain to me why they feel.
But you couldn't explain. And you're a straight man. I'm a straight man. I can't tell you why I'm straight. I really can't. I haven't got an answer for that.
Let's ask Mr. Blue the final question as well, because we didn't ask Mr. Blue, what would you do if your child came out to you as being gay? We've already had the answer from Mr. Red, who said it would be one of nurturing and understanding. However, he said that for him, he would tell his child, whether straight or not, to know who they are at the age of 18. So being a consenting adult. We also heard from Mr. Orange, who himself said for himself, it's about his child and not society. He would stand by his child. Mr. Green, on the other hand, would never understand it, would not disown it, perhaps would slap them. Those are his words. Mr. Blue, where do you stand?
I'm agreeing with Mr.
Orange.
Mr. Orange. Because at the end of the day, it's your child, and if you're a good, loving parent, you would love your child regardless of whether they identify as LGBT or otherwise, because that's what you brought the child in for, to love the child and accept them for who they are. And to guide them through the journey of life.
Absolutely. Can I just chime in a little bit there? There's a lot of things we don't understand in this world. Yeah. You don't have to necessarily have to understand something to accept it. Right? Going back to what you asked Mr. Green earlier, how can you justify being straight, or how can you, explain to me why is it that you like women and not men? It goes for the same, for the LGBT.
I agree.
How can they explain? They can't explain why they like men and not women, or vice versa. You don't have to understand it. You just have to accept it.
And it's also about connecting with people as well, because I know people who identify as heterosexual for many, many years, and then all of a sudden, for whatever connection, whether it's love, chemistry, whatever, they connect to somebody of the same sex. So
let's not forget, for Sunny and I, and I'm not giving any identities here, but Sunny and I are both children of immigrants, and there was a time in this country they couldn't understand the colour of our skin. With that, we'll be back straight after the break, where we'll be unmasking our guests, and they will finally get to reveal who they are to each other.